Hello, my name is Ty Smith, and I'm a mental health consumer. I grew up in the mental health system, and because of that, I went through all the other systems, juvenile justice, special education, homelessness. It wasn't just one system for me, and unfortunately, because I was in the special education system as well, I wasn't allowed to develop normally. I wasn't allowed to make friends. I wasn't allowed to interact with the other students outside of school. And so growing up, I didn't have some of the same opportunities to develop like other adolescents and other children. I had an incredible anger management problem. Most people wouldn't believe it of me today, but back in the day I had long curly hair and not as much facial hair, so I was pretty easy to tease, and a lot of people would refer to me as a girl, and my name, Ty, is just so much you can do with that. So I was an easy target, and one year at middle school, it was the first year of that season, I decided I had enough of the teasing and enough of losing my temper, so I decided I was going to change. And I went from being teased by everyone, including teachers and the students, and bullied by everyone, down to 2 students, and I did this by ignoring. My whole life people were teaching me to stop, breathe, and think, and I never had a chance to stop. If I was breathing, it was fight or flight reflexes, so I was breathing heavily and hard. And if I was thinking, it was generally a bad thing. It meant that I was thinking of how to hurt the person who made me mad. Never a good thing. But ignoring really changed my life, and that's one of the key points of where my life changed. And the next year I decided to up it a level, and because it worked so well. So by the end of that year, I went from the bully wanting to tease me to being my friend. The other student who was like trying to be the cool kid but underneath the bully, I went from him teasing me to me actually giving him a hard time. And I had this report card that said Ty would not be excessively nice, because that was the worst possible thing I could think of to actually get at them whenever they tried to get at me. And that's really one of the first stepping stones of the changing of my life. It didn't mean my life was perfect. My life was far from perfect. I still suffered from depression, and I still was going to contained classrooms, and I still had anger problems, but it was one of the very first steps. The next thing that happened to me was one year I got really depressed towards the end of high school, and I couldn't face the people at the school. I could not tell them why I was gone for 2 weeks because I was depressed, so I dropped out entirely. And I went from missing 2 weeks to missing 2 years. And I dropped out of the mental health system because I had that transition age of 18, and my first applying towards Social Security was rejected, and I just didn't want anything to do with the mental health system. I didn't want anything to do with going to school. I had no future. My life consisted of waiting at a computer monitor, waiting for someone to talk to me. And the first person would talk to me. I didn't have the emotional energy to reach out to anyone else. And I was very suicidal during these years. I had very little communication with anyone. I had no friends. And what happened next was my mom told me about this high-paying job as a peer specialist. Well, if anyone knows anything about peer specialists, they know it's not a high-paying job. But I was ready to believe. So I went there and I tried to apply, and I took the training, and I actually found a passion. I loved doing it. I was good at it. I cared about it. And it was healing for me in a lot of ways. And so I started to care about myself. I started to see a future again. And I got a job as a YAPS, a young adult peer specialist, which is probably one of the first nation youth peer specialists there were. And I really cared about it. And my teachers wanted me to come back and graduate, so they actually used all the work that I had been doing while I dropped out of school, and all the work that I could do as a half-time student to finish graduating on time. So I barely graduated on time, and I was able to get a job, and I found a passion. I really cared about the people I was working with, so I started to become an advocate. I started to go to councils and committees, and the council I went to, the first committee I went to, they really cared about what I had to say, and they started to include me and my voice, and for the first time I had actually found acceptance for what I said and got the credibility of being an expert, and it changed my life. And I started to become a youth advocate and really caring about the youth issues, and I've dedicated myself since then to helping other youth, because I think most people who have gone through the hardships that I have, and I've been through around 28 years of hardships, so I don't have time to go into all of them, but I don't think that people would give them up. I think that it's made us stronger and better people, and it's one of our strengths. So this is a brief part of how I got better. So thank you very much for listening to my story, and continue to support the youth. Thank you very much.